Hollywood was left speechless last night. Not by a movie, not by a scandal, but by something no one saw coming. Tom Cruise, the king of high-octane blockbusters, was abruptly kicked off the set of Jimmy Kimmel Live. What was supposed to be a routine interview turned into a ticking time bomb. And when it exploded, it revealed something dark. Not about Cruise, but about Jimmy Kimmel himself. Behind the fake laughs and polished monologues is late night's golden boy, hiding a much colder truth. What unfolded on that stage didn't just rattle the crew, it stunned the entire entertainment industry. Sources close to the production are now speaking out, and what they're saying is painting a whole new picture of Kimmel, one that may change how you see him forever. But before we dive in, hit subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments, because what you're about to hear isn't just another celebrity headline. It's the unfiltered side of fame no one dares to show. It all started hours before the cameras rolled. Tom Cruise had arrived on set. Calm, courteous, full of energy. According to crew members, he greeted everyone warmly, thanked the staff, and showed the same professionalism that's defined his decades-long career. But when Kimmel walked in just minutes before taping, the energy shifted instantly. He looked annoyed, distant, like he didn't want to be there, said one production assistant. Kimmel reportedly ignored Cruise and grumbled about last-minute changes to the show lineup. Changes made just to accommodate his A-list guest. And that was just the beginning. As the cameras rolled, the tension was impossible to ignore. Kimmel's usual charm was nowhere to be seen. His intro for Cruise was robotic, almost dismissive. When Tom stepped onto the stage to thunderous applause, Jimmy barely stood to greet him. The questions started simple enough, but something was off. Kimmel wasn't there to promote Cruise's latest blockbuster. He was there to push buttons. He probed for personal details, steered away from the movie, and seemed fixated on topics Tom had long refused to address publicly. Cruise tried to stay on course, shifting the conversation back to the film, but every time he did, Kimmel pushed harder. And when he brought up a disgraced Hollywood figure Cruise had once worked with, someone Tom had publicly distanced himself from, the room went dead silent. "So, what's your take on all the allegations against your old buddy?" Kimmel asked with a smirk. Tom shifted in his seat. Calm, measured, but clearly uncomfortable, he replied, "Tonight's about celebrating a film made by hundreds of hard-working people. I'd rather talk about their work. That should have been the end of it." But Jimmy didn't let go. He pressed again, ignoring Cruise's boundaries, practically taunting him in front of a live audience. "Come on, Tom. You can't just pretend that friendship didn't happen." By now, the tension in the room was suffocating. The crowd fell into uneasy silence, and that's when things got heated. Fast. By now, the air in the studio felt razor thin. Tom's smile had disappeared. The audience, unsure whether to laugh or look away, sat frozen. And then Jimmy crossed a line no late-night host should. With a smug glance at the camera, Kimmel dropped a jab so sharp, even the microphones caught the gasps. He took aim at Cruise's deeply personal beliefs, a subject rarely broached in public, let alone on live television. "Spare us the sermon, Tom," he scoffed. "Everyone knows that professionalism is just part of your brand image." The crowd tensed. Offstage, the show's producer frantically waved at the control booth, silently begging to cut to commercial. But it was too late. The damage had been done. Cruise leaned forward slightly. His voice was calm, but it carried a weight that hushed the room. "I respect everyone's right to believe what they choose, Jimmy, and I expect the same in return, especially from a professional sitting in that chair." You could see it, not in his words, but in the way his fingers tightened on the armrest. The Hollywood icon was holding himself together with sheer force of will. And instead of stepping back, Jimmy leaned in. With a lazy flick of his hand, he waved Cruise off like an annoyance. "Oh, come on," he sneered. "You don't really expect us to buy that you're this perfect paragon of discipline. Let's talk about control, Tom." The room went colder. "People say you micromanage everything. Sets, crews, co-stars, directors, even your public appearances," Kimmel said with a smirk. "Sound familiar?" Tom's jaw tensed. His eyes narrowed ever so slightly. But when he spoke, it was with measured conviction. "I'm passionate about filmmaking. When people buy a ticket to a Tom Cruise film, they deserve nothing less than my absolute best. That's not controls, that's commitment." Kimmel's reply came laced with sarcasm. "Interesting word, commitment." Coming from someone who jumps from project to project leaving, what do they call it? Creative wreckage? Even the audience, usually loyal to Kimmel's edgy humour, began to shift uncomfortably. This wasn't comedy anymore. It was a calculated ambush. Tom didn't flinch. I've been privileged to work with artists like Spielberg, Nolan and Scorsese. Every set I walk onto, I walk in to learn, to collaborate, to grow. That's not chaos, that's evolution. A few scattered claps broke the silence, just enough to draw attention. Kimmel's expression soured. Sure, Tom, but let's not pretend your Hollywood record is spotless. People talk, especially about that temper of yours, he pushed, eyes narrowing. Are you saying all those crew members were lying? Now it was Tom's turn to lean in. There's a difference between demanding excellence and throwing tantrums. I push hard, but I push myself hardest. Anyone who's worked with me knows that. Kimmel leaned back, muttering just loud enough for the mic to catch. That's not what I heard. The room had fallen into such silence that even the distant hum of the studio lights seemed louder. But rather than press that line further, Jimmy suddenly changed course. With a dramatic pause, he reached beneath his desk and produced a stack of cue cards. Let's talk about your last movie, he said coldly. Because the reviews? Let's just say they weren't glowing. He began reading them aloud, one by one. Each line dipped in mock sympathy, but aimed to humiliate. A vanity project. Proof that even stars fade. He grinned. That one's from the Times. Ouch. Even his loyal audience couldn't muster a chuckle. This wasn't an interview anymore. It was character assassination disguised as banter. Tom let the silence build before finally responding, not defensively, but with quiet dignity. I've been in this business over 40 years, Jimmy. I've had critics lift me up and tear me down, but I've never once mocked someone else's creative work to get a laugh. The words landed hard. Some audience members even applauded. A small but clear sign of where the room was leaning. Kimmel? He doubled down. Oh, I forgot, he said, voice dripping with sarcasm. We're all supposed to pretend your films are untouchable because you're Tom Cruise. Tom didn't blink. No one's asking for special treatment, he said quietly. I'm asking for basic professional respect, the same I've always given you, every time I've come on this show. Tom's words still hung in the air. I'm asking for basic professional respect, he had said. But Jimmy Kimmel wasn't ready to let it go. He leaned forward, his voice rising. Professional courtesy? He repeated, incredulous. Is that what you call it when your team sends over a 3-page list of forbidden topics before you'll even agree to show up? The accusation hit hard, and for the first time, Tom looked genuinely surprised. I've never sent you a list, Jimmy, he said clearly. My team coordinates with yours, just like every guest team does, to plan a show, to entertain your audience. That's not control, that's standard. Kimmel scoffed. Standard? Nothing about you is standard, Tom. He leaned back, arms spread theatrically. You sweep in with your handlers and your egos and your must-have lists, like you own the place. You know how exhausting it is dealing with celebrities who think the whole world revolves around them. Despite the rising hostility, Cruise kept his composure. I'm sorry you feel that way, he said evenly. If there's ever been a misunderstanding between our teams, I'm happy to discuss that offline. That word, offline, seemed to set Kimmel off. He laughed, sharp and bitter. Of course, take it offline. Classic Cruise, always in control of the narrative. Off stage, the show's director was now wildly signaling to wrap. But Jimmy ignored everything but the heat of the moment. You want to talk about control, Tom? He snapped, voice flushed with rising emotion. I've been doing this show for years. Presidents, world leaders, A-listers, and never has anyone tried to dictate terms the way you do. Tom's expression finally hardened. He sat forward, voice low but unmistakably firm. I came here tonight to talk about a film made by hundreds of hard-working professionals, artists, technicians, storytellers who gave it their all. He paused. If you're not interested in talking about that, then maybe this conversation should end. But Kimmel didn't stop. He shot back. Oh, I'm interested in a lot of things, Tom, like why you think you can show up on my stage and expect me to only ask the softball questions your publicist approved. This isn't a press junket. This is late night. We keep it real. Tom raised an eyebrow. Keeping it real? Is that what you call this? Ambushing guests with topics they didn't come here to discuss. I call it journalism, Kimmel replied, smug, defiant. That's when Tom let out a quiet laugh, but it carried no humour. With all due respect, Jimmy, what you're doing right now, it's not journalism. It's not even good television. It's just sad. That word, sad, landed like a slap. And for the first time, Jimmy didn't have a quick comeback. His face flushed red, and for a flicker of a second, he seemed rattled. But then he struck back, harder than ever. "You want to talk about sad?" he hissed. "Let's talk about how your personal life is a punchline in Hollywood. About what people whisper about you at parties. Let's talk about your own daughter." "That's enough." Tom's voice cracked through the studio like a whip. He stood, not to storm off, but to draw a clear line in the sand. "I came here to promote a film, not to be ambushed, not to have my family dragged into this for ratings. I've respected your show. I've respected your audience, but I will not stand here while you try to humiliate me, or use my family to entertain your viewers." The room went utterly still. Kimmel, stunned, said nothing for a long moment. Even the crew froze. Then, with forced nonchalance, Jimmy tried to laugh it off. "Come on, Tom. You can't come on a comedy show and not expect a few jokes. That's how it works." Tom didn't sit back down. "No, Jimmy, that's not how it works." His voice was low but unshakable. "There's a difference between good-natured teasing and what you just did. You crossed a line, and deep down, you know you did." Behind them, the executive producer finally stepped onto the stage, head set askew, whispering urgently into Kimmel's ear. But Jimmy waved him off. "Oh, please," he muttered, eyes rolling. "The great Tom Cruise, too sensitive for a little late-night banter. This is what I'm talking about. Hollywood elites living in a bubble, surrounded by yes men. And then when someone finally calls them out, I'm the bad guy." A low murmur of disapproval rippled through the audience. Then, unmistakably, a few boos. Kimmel blinked. For a moment, he looked genuinely confused. Then he doubled down again. But this time, the executive producer's voice cut through, sharp and public. "Jimmy, we need to go to commercial." Kimmel shook his head, agitated. "Number, I'm not done." "Yes, Jimmy," the producer said firmly, now gesturing to cut the feed. "We are." Kimmel's show, confrontation segment. As the cameras began to pull back, Cruise calmly stood to leave. This sudden movement seemed to trigger something in Kimmel. "Kimmel," standing up quickly, "is this what you do when you can't control the situation?" Cruise paused and turned slowly, meeting Kimmel's gaze. "Cruise, I'm not running, Jimmy. I'm choosing to walk away from a conversation that's no longer productive or respectful. There's a difference." His voice was steady, but there was an undeniable edge to it. "Cruise, and just so you know, I've never needed to control conversations. My work speaks for itself." Kimmel laughs bitterly. "Oh, your work? You mean jumping on couches and hanging off buildings? That's not acting, Tom. That's just a middle-aged man desperate to stay relevant." A collective gasp rippled through the studio. Even the band seemed stunned by the unprovoked attack. Cruise's expression hardened, but he remained calm. Before Cruise could respond, someone from his team rushed to his side and whispered something in his ear. Cruise nodded and then addressed Kimmel directly. "Cruise, I think we're done here. Thank you for having me on your show, Jimmy. I wish I could say it's been a pleasure." As Cruise turned to leave, Kimmel couldn't help himself, calling out, "Kimmel, yeah, walk away. That's what you do best, isn't it? Walk away when things get complicated. Just ask your ex-wives." The producer quickly intervened, stepping between Kimmel and Cruise, signaling to cut the cameras. But it was too late. Cruise stopped dead in his tracks and the studio fell completely silent. Slowly, Cruise turned back to Kimmel. "Cruise," voice quiet but piercing. "Jimmy, I came here tonight out of respect for your audience and the legacy of this show. I've been on here before, always playing along with your bits and treating you and your team with nothing but professionalism." He took a step toward Kimmel, who seemed to shrink under his gaze. "Cruise, but tonight you've shown a side of yourself that will surprise a lot of your viewers. Not me, though. I've heard the stories from other guests about how you're friendly on camera, but a completely different person when the lights go down, how you belittle your staff and throw tantrums when you don't get your way. Murmurs spread through the audience. Kimmel's face turned pale as Cruise spoke. Cruise, I've ignored those rumors because I try to give everyone the benefit of the doubt. But tonight, you've shown everyone exactly who you are, and it's not a good look, Jimmy. For once, Kimmel was speechless. His face turned ashen, and the producer was frantically signaling for the cameras to cut to commercial. But the network didn't manage it in time. Kimmel's stricken expression and Cruise's dignified exit were captured in full view. When the show returned, Kimmel sat alone at his desk, noticeably subdued. He attempted to make light of the situation, but the attempt fell flat. The audience's applause was scattered and lackluster. Backstage tension. Behind the scenes, chaos erupted. Cruise and his team were confronted by Kimmel's security as they tried to leave. "Security guard, you need to wait here. Jimmy wants to resolve this privately." Cruise, stepping forward firmly. "There's nothing to resolve. We're leaving now. Please step aside." The security guards hesitated, creating a tense standoff in the backstage corridor. Despite being shorter than the security personnel, Cruise exuded an undeniable aura of authority. "Cruise," calm, commanding. "I said we're leaving. Unless you intend to physically restrain us, which I strongly advise against, you will step aside now." The head of security glanced nervously toward the producer, who nodded reluctantly. The security team parted, allowing Cruise and his team to move forward. As they neared the exit, Kimmel appeared, flushed, his tie loosened. Kimmel, "Tom, wait! Look, things got heated out there. Let's talk privately." Cruise paused, looking Kimmel directly in the eye. "Cruise, I think enough has been said tonight, don't you?" Kimmel's tone shifted suddenly, attempting to be conciliatory. "Kimmel, it's just television. You know how it works. We push buttons, get reactions. The audience loves it." Cruise, firmly, "No, Jimmy. That's where you're wrong. The audience doesn't love watching people be humiliated. They don't love mean-spirited attacks disguised as humor. What happened out there tonight wasn't entertainment. It was bullying. Plain and simple." Kimmel's face darkened. Kimmel, "Bullying? Are you kidding me? You're Tom Cruise, one of the most powerful men in Hollywood. Don't act like you're some victim here." Cruise, calmly but with authority. "Power isn't the issue. Respect is. And tonight, you've shown that you don't have any. Not for your guests, not for your audience, and apparently not for yourself." With those final words hanging in the air, Cruise turned and walked toward the exit, his team following behind him. Kimmel stood frozen, mouth slightly open, as if ready to retort, but never quite finding the words. The security team, sensing which way the wind was blowing, stepped aside without further protest. As Cruise reached the exit, a young production assistant, who had witnessed the entire exchange, stepped forward hesitantly. "Assistant," quietly. "Mr. Cruise, I just wanted to say thank you for standing up for yourself. Not many people do that here." Cruise paused, his expression softening as he looked at her. "Cruise, sometimes you have to draw a line even when it's difficult." With a nod to his team, he pushed through the exit doors and disappeared into the night. The next morning, clips of the confrontation flooded social media, generating millions of views within hours. Sharadar Kimmel Exposed quickly became the top trending hashtag as viewers dissected every moment of the uncomfortable exchange. Industry insiders who had remained silent for years began sharing their own stories about Kimmel's behind-the-scenes behavior, painting a picture that confirmed much of what Cruise had alluded to on air. The network executives called an emergency meeting. By midday, they had issued a terse statement announcing that Jimmy Kimmel Live would be going on an unscheduled 2-week hiatus for studio maintenance. Cruise, meanwhile, maintained his characteristic professionalism, declining all requests for follow-up interviews or comments on the incident. His publicist issued only a brief statement. Mr. Cruise appreciates the support he has received from fans, but considers the matter closed and is focused on his upcoming projects. Nevertheless, the impact was undeniable. Ratings for Kimmel's show plummeted upon its return. Publicists became reluctant to book their A-list clients on his program. In Hollywood circles, a new phrase entered the lexicon: getting cruised, meaning to maintain one's dignity in the face of provocation and to stand up to bullying with calm authority. As for Kimmel, the mask had slipped, and no amount of damage control could fully restore the carefully cultivated image he had built over the years. The public had glimpsed the man behind the persona, and they weren't impressed by what they saw. In the end, the confrontation served as a powerful reminder that even in an industry built on illusion, authenticity eventually reveals itself. True star power isn't measured by one's ability to dominate others, but by the courage to stand up for what's right. So, what do you think about this explosive confrontation between Tom Cruise and Jimmy Kimmel? Was Kimmel out of line, or was Cruise overreacting? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let us know what you think. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an update on the latest celebrity news. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you're always in the loop. We'll see you in the next video.